Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's start the today's session. Before going to the today's session, let's recap what we discussed in the previous session, right? So, in the last session, we talked about SAP Hybris overview a little bit and what is SAP Hybris and why we need. And then we went through the steps to set up the SAP Hybris on the local. Like the steps like we installed the JDK and then we downloaded the SAP Commerce Suite and extracted to the local machine and then we set the environment variable for the SAP libraries to build through the command prompt and then we install the BTC accelerator using the BTC recipe and then we built the entire libraries application on local and then we started the SAP library server. Once the server is up, then we navigated to the HAC. This is the HAC URL, and then we navigated to the back office URL to open the back office application to check whether the SAP Ibris is properly installed on the local or not. And then we also logged into the e-commerce website that is B2C because we installed the B2C accelerator on the local, right? So that's what we discussed in the previous session. In today's session, let's discuss about what is this HAC application, right? This HAC stands for Address Administration Console. Shortly, we call it as HAC. Let's see how this application. This is a web application given by the SAP Address. Let's see what it contains and how we use it in today's session. Right, let me open this JC application. So I already opened it on my local. So you can see here, like by default, when you hit this URL, it will direct you to this page by default. So if you are not initialized that, like you install the B2C accelerator and you build the SAP IBs on the local, and then you started the server. And when you hit this URL, by default, it take you to this screen, right? It will ask you to initialize it, right? First time when you install the SAP Hybris on your local, you have to install it. You have to initialize the SAP Hybris system, entire Hybris system to work it properly. So initialization is a process. It actually removes all the data from the database tables and it rewrites the data. I will explain what will happen during this entire initialization process. But for now, you just remember that initialization is a process. It actually deletes all the data from the database tables and it rewrites again into all those tables, right? Based on the items.xml schema that we have given. I will let you know in the later sessions what this items.xml and all. Okay. So once you initialize this one and your initialization is successful, then you will see this screen. When you relog in after the initialization, you will see this is the screen, right? So this is the HAS home screen, we call it. So just log out. Suppose when I log out and I have to give the credentials, this is the URL, right? We hit it. First time when you hit it, it will take you to the initialization screen. Once the initialization is successful, then you have to relog in. And when you relog in, you have to provide the credentials again. The username is admin and the password is nimda. Once you provide or logged in, you will see this is the screen. This is the home screen of the HSC you will see, right? HSC, as you see, HSC means Hybris Administration Console. It is a web application provided by the SAP Hybris, right? So it is an web application provided by Hybris. Using this application, we actually administrate the SAP Hybris and also we will monitor it and we also do the some configuration related information stuff of about the SAP Hybris, right? I will go through them all in this session today. So as I mentioned, by default it can be accessed through this URL, but this URL path, right? You can also change it based on the project requirement, but by default SAP IBIS can be HS URL can be accessed using these URLs. 9001 is the for HTTP port and the for HTTPS you have to use the 90. not the 901. Sorry, 901 is the port for the HTTP and 9002 is the port for the HTTPS. Okay, and by default, it asks for the credentials. You need to provide the admin and NIMDA as the default credentials that you need to use to log into the SAP Hybris HAC. Okay, and also you can also just now I just started the SAP Hybris server using the command called hybrisserver.bat. Right, I went to the platform folder and I ran the SAP Hybris server.bat. This is the command I ran to start the server. But you can all in this case it will it's like it will up all the applications like HAS Hybris HAC storefront like this. It will actually it will actually up the HAC application, back office application, and the website. By the this is a BTC website that we because we installed only the BTC recipe, right? That's why you see this BTC electronics website. So right, these all these three applications will be up when you when you start the server using the hybrisserver.bat. But you don't want to open all those applications. You only want to work with HAC, right? Only this one, this application you wanted to do. You wanted to set up some configuration for the SAP Hybris, or you wanted to do some administrative related work on this SAP Hybris application. Then you just need this HAC application only, right? In that case, you just have to run this command, right? Uh, you just have to run this command admin server.bat. Then in the platform folder, it will, instead of the every server.bat, then it will only up the HAC application. This will not be started, so, right? So that you can work only with the HAC without wasting resources for the other applications, right? So that's about uh, HAC. So once the HAC is up and logged into the system, HAC application, you will see this is the information you can see right here. This is like when you click on this is the logo banner. When you click on this one, you will come to the wherever you are. Suppose like I'm going to the console tab and scripting languages, and when it's taking some time, let's wait for it. Yeah, it's opened up. So when I click on the console, it came to this screen, right? I wanted to go back like to the home screen. Then when you click on this Ibris Administrator Console logo, then it will come here, right? And you have the logout screen to log out, and you have types here. You wanted to search something, right? You can search here anything you wanted to search. You can see here that is the search box provided on the HAC or publication, and you also see the top links, right? When you click on these links, it will actually take you to the respective SAP Agris website to learn more about the that particular component, right? Uh, so sorry, this is actually uh, about this other links, other functionality of this SAP application. Instead of going directly to the particular tabs like this console impacts import, you can directly go to the clicking on this link. It directly go take you to this one, this tab, right? This will make most user links are displayed here, like in the HSC we mostly use these links. That's why you have these links here as a top links, right? And then you will have the multiple tabs here like on the HSC. Each tab has different subsections. We will go through what all these things, right? First, let's go to the platform. In the platform, let's go to the tenants, right? So SAP Hybris actually can be set up using the multi-tenant system, right? You see here, so SAP Commerce can be run in multi-tenant mode, okay? So if you see tenant is nothing but just assume that you have a database. You have a database. Assume that in the database or you have a single database, but you wanted to act it as a multiple databases. Like you have different sets of data that you wanted to perform on only with one single SAP Hybris application. You see here tenant 1, tenant 2, tenant 3. All these are part of the single database, but each tenant has its own set of data. Instead of going for the multiple databases, inside one database, you can just create a different tenants which contains the specific set of data, which is isolated also from the other tenants. Tenant 1 is isolated its data from the tenant 2. Tenant 2 also isolated data from tenant 3 and tenant 1, right? So tenant 3 will isolate its data from tenant 1 and tenant 2, right? So using this tenant system, so when we go for multi-tenant system, we wanted to work with the different sets of data using this SAP Hybris single SAP Hybris instance, with the same version, right? Suppose I'm using Hybris 1905, I can use only the Hybris 1905 instance, and I wanted to have a different sets of data for different websites, like different country websites. Like I have, suppose assume that, right? I have a website for UK, I have a website for Germany, I have a website for France. In that three cases, I don't want to use the three different databases, but I want to go for a tenant system. Means tenant one will be used for the UK, and tenant two is used for the France, and tenant three would be used for the Germany, right? Each tenant contains data related to that particular website. Tenant one will contain the data for UK. Tenant two will contain the data for the uh, France, and tenant 3 will contain the data for the Germany, right? So this is like a tenant system with this is like a each set of data for each SAP Ibris commands, which is running on the same Ibris instance. So all these three tenants will connect to a same Ibris instance with the same version, but will act as a different data sets for each country's website, right? In that case, we will go for the multi-tenant system. So that you can see inside the platform folder. When I click on the tenants, I can see this. What all the tenants available by default, right? So we have the master tenant and we have the JNet tenant. JNet tenant is for running only the JNet test cases created for our functionality Java classes, right? And all other three, there are more like T1, T2 tenants. These are the by default tenants available with the SAP Hybris. You can create a more new tenants, you can delete the existing tenants based on our need. There is a process that we using that. There is a property we need to set it. Using that, we can create more tenants or we can decrease the tenants based on project need. But this multi-tenant system is only recommended on the local, which is not actually recommended for the development or the production environments, right? That's about the tenants. And next, let's go to the configuration tab under the platform. So here in this platform, this configuration tab, so see, I wanted to set up some properties for my SAP Ibis application, right? So that we can, set up here like this. Basically, two ways we can do. One through we will have to add these properties in the local local dot properties file. So there are two files that basically we need to understand. These are two very important ones. When you go to the Ibis folder and inside the config, we have the local dot properties and we have the local extension dot xml, right? These are the two very important files that you very important for an SAP Hybris application, right? Local dot properties, inside this you will maintain all the configuration related details. If you can see here, in the local dot property file, let me open it in a different application. Yeah, by default, you see this is a local properties file. So here you see initial password dot admin. I gave this as a key, and this is the value, right? So you can see this here in the configuration file in the HAC. Whatever the properties you configure here in the local properties file, that you can see here. Looks like it is not copied. Let me copy it. See, I just kept this key initial password dot admin as the key and named as the password in the local dot property file. Same and I can see here, right? So whatever you configure in the local dot property file for the project, all those configuration details you can see inside the platform configuration, right? So I will give you more about this local, what is this local dot properties, how this when we need it, but for now you just understand like this, right? So this inside the configuration tab we will use setup all the properties, configuration property required for an SAP Ibis application. And then we have the system tab. In the system tab you will see all the operating system information, right? And right, and also what all the paths you set up, all these information you can see in the system dot properties. You can see the JVM related properties and all these JVM related properties you are using currently, and what all these version, all this information you can see in the system properties file. And inside the login, this is one of the good thing for a developer to debug on the local, right? So you can see on the lower environments like dev, QA, and the local, we enable the debug, but on the production, we will not enable the debug, right? We only enable info logs, right? Because we don't have to be, overloaded with the logger files on the production. That's the reason we only enable the info logs on the production. But at the lower environments, we will enable the debug logs because we wanted to test it, right, on the lower environments, how the application functionality is working on, right? So for this, if that setting of these things, you can do it here. Like suppose I wanted to set up like a particular class. Suppose like see, this is the class I wanted to set up a log level to. It's set up a debug, but I wanted to change it to a different level, right? Then I can configure here. I just enter that particular class here. I just do the configuration. It is now, you see, it is set for all. It means all the levels like of debug, info, warn, all the logs will be set up here. That means in this class, if you write any logger dot debug, logger dot info, and you can write something, you can print something, right? All this information you will see in the console log. If you set up only the debug, then you only see the debug log. So you have to enter that particular package class with the package name, including the along with the package, and you need to set the log level and then just click the configure, so that that particular uh, class will be set for the log level debug. Okay, and then we have the extensions tab. This extension tab is just, it will show you like what all the extensions are currently deployed on your web application. You have like multiple, you can select the all the list by using all here in the show entries. So you will see all the what all the extensions, for this SAP Hybris application currently deployed on my local system, right? These are the different types of extension and what is the version we are using, SAP Hybris version, and part of which uh, extension, right? All these things you will see here. And then initialization, we just talked about the initialization, right? So when you start the server, by default it will, without initializing your system, it will take you to the screen. When you click on this initialization, it initializes the whole SAP Hybrid system, right? I just mentioned in the starting that I will explain you more about the initialization process, right? So let's see what happens during the initialization process, right? So this is the initial during, in SAP Hybrid there is one important file called items.xml, where we define all the configuration required for the data modeling, right? In SAP Hybrid, data modeling means like what all the types of items types you need to create. Your item type nothing but just remember that it is equivalent to a Java class. Okay, so in the Ibris as a mechanism to create a Java class, a database level class, sorry, not a Java class. Items.xml is like a items.xml is like a database schema related, right? Okay, in the items.xml, when you define an item type, which actually when you do the initialization or update through HAC, then it creates a respective entry in the database table. Suppose I have an item like product. Inside the product, I have like three attributes: item name, product name, product ID, and product description. Now I wanted to uh, create such table in the database in Ibris, right? For that, what I need to do in the items.xml, I need there is a the items.xml is a like a XML file. There is a, a way to define. When I define that type, like I need to give the item type as a product, and inside that attributes as the name, ID, and description. Once I gave those information, and when I do, I have to give that first, and then when I do initialization or update, then it will make the entry to the database. You will not able to create entry directly in the SAP Ibris database. Instead, you need to create that as an item type in the items.xml. Then you need to do the initialization and update. Then only it will make an entry into the database table. And then it makes into the database corresponding table. It creates the corresponding table in the database. Okay. So now what it does during the initialization, just remember the type definition in the sense it is just like item types defined in the items.xml. Okay. So what it do during the initialization, whatever the item types we define in the items.xml, right? And when you those are already created in database, then what happens when you click on the initialization, it will drops all those tables already created in the database, and then it rebuilds them, recreates them again. So suppose there is a product table, I have like lots of data in that. When I initialize it, what happens? All data will be removed and it creates the database again without any data. You know, so initialization actually removes all the data from the database for the types defined in the items.xml and recreates those types like types related database tables in the items database, but it will not we will not have the what is the data in the before the initialization in that table. So all that data will be lost. Okay. And before initialization, what it happens? So before doing this thing, this dropping of all this database level information, it first checks if there are any cron jobs already running on this local or on this Ibris instance. I just remember cron job is like a set of functionality executed at certain time. Okay, that is repeated task. You have to perform but certain time. Then you will create a cron jobs in the Ibris. I will explain later this thing, but just remember for now. So what it will do, if there are already any running cron jobs on the local machine, then it first aborts them, and then in the second step, it will remove all the tables. Just we discussed from the database, and then it will recreate those data for those tables. Okay, and it uses the DDL, DML scripts for the same, and then it will during the initialization it will also clears any cache. Ibris uses the query cache, region cache, right? For the there is items cache using the that we have there is a flexible search API that Ibris uses. Using that, it actually creates the query cache. All those such things will be removed, and it creates the media folders, and then there is a license also required for running this Ibris, as I mentioned, right? It is a licensed version, not a open source SAP Ibris. It loads that as well, and there is also project related, project data and essential data for this SAP Ibris by default. No, yeah, these data is like we SAP Ibris requires setup like creating the catalogs, like it has the product and content catalogs, some product information, some media information, your currency, country. There are lots of things it will require for this SAP hybrid system to execute. run properly, right? So all that information also creates during this initialization. This project data and essential data actually by default has prepared by the SAP Ibris itself for the sample applications like electronic stores and apparel store, and it will be this data will be has to be executed during the initialization. That electronics and the storefront application to be worked properly, right? So these are the things happens during the initialization. This initialization is a very important thing. So and once they are for each, just remember initialization we will do only once for one application at the starting of the time. So when you are first starting the development for any environment first time setting up the environment, you will do the initialization, and then you will not do any afterwards you will not recommended to do any initialization because you will lose all the data for the environment, right? Instead of the initialization, if they make any changes to the existing instance like database item types, right? For you maybe added some more extra attributes, or you maybe added change some of the existing attributes, right? For that second time onwards, after initialization, you make any those kind of changes to the items.xml. It is you need to it is recommended to do the update, not the initialization, right? Update you will also see here. This is the initialization. You can also see the update here. So this update is actually uh, makes the changes to the existing data. So it will not remove the any data from the existing table, but what all the extra changes you made in the items.xml. Like if suppose I have a product where I have three attributes I mentioned, right? For initially, like product ID, name, description. Now I included another attribute called short description, right? In this case, you just need to update it. When you update it, it will not make any changes to the existing three attributes on the product, but it will actually add the extra attribute to the product, right? So first time you need to do the when you enter the when you set up the environment first time, at that time you just need to do the initialization, and next time onwards you just always need to do the update, not the system initialization. And then we have the SQL scripts and the platform. So it just it will generate the required scripts for update or the initialization. We are doing through the tabs, but you wanted to do through the SQL scripts that you can run directly on database. Using here, you can generate those scripts and run it on the database. And you will also see the license details used for this application. Right, this is like a demo license since it is running on the local. All this license information you can see here. License date, you know, license ID, license name, license version, all these information you can see here. And then we have the support tab. The support tab is like it creates the zip file including all the logs about this SAP Appraisal application. And once it is created, this is basically knowing the status of the SAP application. But what we will do, we'll create the zip file here from this tab, and it includes the inside the zip file, it includes all the log level information about the SAP application, and it will send it to the support team. Support team will analyze the issue, and they will identify what is the problem with the application because they can see these logs, right? And then we have the PK analyzer. So just remember that PK analyzer in the sense PK is like primary key, we call it here. Each item type that you define in the items.xml, right? There will be a unique key created by internally unique key created by SAP Ibris. That we call as a PK. It has a number value like it's more than 10 to 15 digits. It depends on that unique key value generation, and that each item type will have this different unique key, right? That you define the item type in the item.xml. When you do the update system or initialize system, then there is a unique key generated for each item type. That we call it as a PK. So you can enter that PK value here, and you can see about what is that PK about. So it will give you here. I'm not entering the right PK here, but just if you enter that PK value here, it will give you what is that PK is and what is the item type that PK value is created, you know, and at what time it created. All that information you will see here. And then we have the class path analyzer. Here we can load the you have to enable this one on local to make this class path analyzer to be available here. So once we enable it, it will actually have the opportunity to load the dot jar files, right? Jar files and dot class files from the jars. Here you can directly load here. That way, so if you want something missing in your application in Ibris, there is some Java class or some jar file is load missing, then you can directly load them using this class path analyzer under the platform, right? So this is about the first step platform under this subsections we discussed today. And there are more tabs like monitoring, maintenance, and console. We will discuss these in the coming session. I hope you guys understand all these things. And this is for today. And before ending up the session, there is a request from my side. I would kindly request everyone to subscribe to my channel and follow the technical expertise on the SA Fabrics. In the coming sessions, I will give you more content oriented on the technical as well. So I request everyone to subscribe and support me so that it will encourage me to do more content on this SA Fabrics. Thank you.